Oh dear, it was considered one of the most important arguments of the Brexit supporters. The low-skilled foreigners should no longer have so easy access to British jobs. But the situation on the labour market seems so dramatic after leaving the EU that people are now thinking differently. A leading British Brexit supporter and Conservative ex-minister has called for a move away from the UK's restrictive immigration policy on EU citizens. This is intended to combat the labour shortage and the resulting stubbornly high inflation in the country. That's what ex-Environment Minister George Eustice told the Sunday newspaper Observer, thereby opposing the core promise of Brexit supporters to make it more difficult for low-skilled foreigners to access the domestic labour market. Young people under the age of 35 from EU countries such as Romania, Bulgaria and the Baltic countries should initially receive 2-year visas on the basis of bilateral negotiations. That's what former cabinet member of ex-Prime Minister Boris Johnson demanded. In the long term, this should be expanded into a mutual youth mobility program with the entire EU. The inflation rate in Great Britain was last at 8.7%, and experts see a connection to the labour shortage because it leads to lower production and thus a falling supply. If demand stays the same, prices will go up. The reason for the economic difficulties is not the exit from the EU itself, but the country's new immigration system, said Eustice. This is not tailored to the needs of the economy. We let people into the country who are considered qualified, such as lawyers, bankruptcy trustees, even disc jockeys, although we have no shortage in these areas, he said. And he said, but we don't let people come here to work in sectors like the food industry, even though there are acute labour shortages there. Well, one of the main arguments put forward by Brexit advocates for leaving the EU in 2020 was to take back control of their borders. The freedom of movement for workers that had applied until then for EU citizens was therefore abolished. Around 10,000 harvest workers are missing in Great Britain, but the British government does not want to help farmers with visas for workers from abroad. That would just contradict their Brexit promises. To understand what the Brexit-driven government is up to, one has to look at its vision of the economy. Their former frontman, ex-Prime Minister Boris Johnson, has mentioned it again and again. On the one hand, the number of migrants is to be significantly reduced, especially that of cheap labour. They just push wages down, said Johnson, for example, in an interview in January 2020. On the other hand, the Brexiteers want a new economy, like in a dream country. Our vision is an economy with top salaries, low taxes, a highly educated workforce with high productivity and rapidly increasing wages for low earners. That's what Johnson said in 2019. And his successor as Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, a Brexiteer who is no longer Johnson's friend, but still brother in spirit, has been bombarding the nation for weeks with a slogan. High wages, top-skilled economy. Sounds familiar. Great Britain wants to train top people and bring the brightest into the country. We want these migrants, propagates Sunak. What does that actually mean for example, strawberry harvest? So either that well-paid Britons take over or robots. Unlike granting work visas to low-wage workers, the UK government is being generous in developing technology for agriculture. It gives the equivalent of 230 million euros to advance innovations, and prototypes are already in use, but not yet ready for the market. If these were run by well-paid engineers, the strawberry field dream of the Brexiteers would be a reality. But it's not that far yet, and certainly not in all areas where cheap labour determines everyday life. Economists are not only skeptical about the utopia of an economy in which the masses are well educated and earn well, also whether farmers can be forced to do without helpers from abroad and invest in robots. King's College's Jonathan Portes doubts both. And farmers point out the government strategy is nonsense. They cannot squeeze the industry and at the same time demand that they spend more money on higher wages and robots. The shortage of harvest workers will remain, and most recently the government only reacted when consumers were also affected and were faced with empty fruit and vegetable shelves. But it's not that far yet on the long run. But Brexit is leaving its mark everywhere. Another example is at the moment that 7 out of 10 Formula One teams are based in England. Traveling has become an even greater logistical challenge for them since Brexit. They rely on political concessions now. Among other things, the Williams team boss complained about the bureaucratic hurdles. The majority of Formula One teams are struggling with the consequences of Brexit because of their seats in England. And the travel-intensive racing series is hoping for help and accommodation from politicians. At a meeting of the 7 teams concerned and Formula One Managing Director Stefano Domenicali, among others, with the Minister of Culture Lucy Fraser, who is also responsible for sports, well, during the week it was more about the economic importance of the British Grand Prix. At Silverstone, however, Williams team boss James Vowles lamented the bureaucratic hurdles that the teams have been facing since the United Kingdom left the European Union. Since January 1st in 2021, when the transition period ended, Great Britain is no longer part of the EU internal market and the customs union. They would currently fill out several hundred so-called carnets in order to ship and deliver parts. That's a customs document for the temporary importation of goods. And Vowles described logistical issues for teams based in England as a result of Brexit changes. In addition to Williams, there are Alpine, Aston Martin, McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, and also Haas, which has a base on the island in addition to its headquarters in the United States. They understand where British motorsport is. They support it, said Vowles, reporting a very good conversation at 10 Downing Street. As far as he knew, it was also the first time that they had actually spoken to the government. And the government was very open to our concerns. In the coming year, Formula One is planning a record calendar with 24 races, which will increase the number of trips again. But I have to a little bit crash the, let's say, the hopes of Vowles with that government. I mean, the government knows exactly for a long time that this is an issue, because why should Formula One be any different than musicians? And we had the musician topic. If they want to tour in Europe with their instruments and all the technology and whatever they have to bring, this is an old story. But that Formula One is complaining now, interesting. But the government knows all about it for a long time. And yeah, I wouldn't be too, let's say, optimistic on getting a lot of help there. Nevertheless, Brexit is a gift that keeps on giving, and now more and more Brexiteers are talking about the failures of Brexit. But I haven't heard it from George Eustice yet. I just realized I called him by the name I somehow all the time call him useless today a lot. He didn't blame the government yet, so that Brexit is good, but the government messed it up, like Farage and others do, and lie to themselves with it. But more and more people realize, especially the voters more and more realize, that Brexit was a mistake, that they've been lied to like hell and a lot else. And so it will be interesting, especially in the run-up to the next general election, when they cannot blame everything on the pandemic or the Ukraine war, because all the other countries in Europe are affected by those as well. And you see the difference. I mean, I talked about this earlier, when milk got cheaper here and some products already got cheaper. Now more and more stuff is getting cheaper here in my supermarket. And inflation in the UK is still the overall inflation at 8.7%. Germany is very affected by the Ukraine war because our government was so stupid to be very dependent on Russian gas. We got away from that Russian gas dependence now, but that affected Germany a lot. But our inflation was never as high as in the UK at the same time, and it's much lower now. And as I said, prices in my supermarket are falling, and now I see more and more prices falling there. You know, there's always a delay, first in the rise and then in the fall again, but it's more and more now that where on food and milk and whatever, the prices are falling. And my friends in the UK tell me something different. And well, plus the mortgage issue that they are talking about a lot when they have their fixed rates are running out soon, and so, but you know about those topics. Nevertheless, we will talk about Brexit a long time, and we will have a close look. I didn't talk about this today in the video on Starmer's plans for Brexit, but we will definitely do that again. And just to remind everyone, because it's a fresh restart, and so many people are still missing it when it's time. My live streams have started again. My live streams are at the same time they were in the past before I had to take a break on them. They are on Sundays at 6 p.m. CET. That's 5 p.m. in the UK. And for the rest, please check what 6 p.m. CET is in your time, because I have viewers from all over the planet. I cannot list them all. But there you will, on most Sundays, definitely there will be a few Sundays in a year where I have to skip it. Then you just get a normal video because I have appointments I cannot skip. You know that I'm in politics as well as a volunteer, voluntary politician. And so there will be some Sundays I cannot do this, but most Sundays I will be there. And usually very early, like it's already the case, I am planning this live stream on YouTube. And so on my channel page, there on the very top is a section planned live streams. There you can already see it, and you can get a notification for this live stream if it works. I think Cthulhu, you wrote that you got the notification an hour after the live stream, but usually that works, and you can set it up there if you want. The next live stream is already on my channel page again, and so it's almost a week until the next live stream. So if you want to see something else, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.